Copper Sun, Part 5, Amari, Chapter 23, Fiery Pain and Healing Hands. Her back was on fire. Amari didn't remember being brought back to the cabin, didn't hear Teeny's shouts or see Polly's tears. All she knew was that every breath made the pain intensify. Every movement made her gasp and scream. She was dimly aware of voices above her, of hands carefully washing the bleeding, sliced skin on her back, of cooling salves being applied. Then, mercifully, she slept. For 3 days, she hovered between the darkness and the light. She dreamed of her parents, of her little brother, of the belly of the slave ship, and of the flames that devoured her flesh. On the 3rd morning, Amari felt gentle hands and cool water on her face. She opened her eyes and saw Polly. "Welcome back," Polly said softly. "Water," Amari whispered. Polly lifted Amari's head and gave her small sips of water from a cup. "Hurt so bad," Amari said next. She groaned as she tried to move. "Yes, I know. Let me put some more of Teeny's salve on your back. I don't know what's in it, but already the welts are starting to heal a little. At least the bleeding has stopped." "So sorry," Amari said. "Don't apologize. It's not your fault. Mr. Derby needs to have somebody give him a stiff lashing to let him know how it feels." She stumped back and forth in their cabin. Amari, even in her dazed state, could feel that Polly's anger was too big for the small room. "It'd be better soon," Amari said, trying to calm Polly a bit. Polly picked up an empty wooden bucket and threw it across the floor. "Mr. Derby is horribly cruel. He probably tripped you on purpose. How could he beat you like that? It was just a spilled pie." "Must clean stain," Amari whispered, trying to move. Polly placed her hand on Amari's arm. "Be still. Me and Lena cleaned it up so you would never know it was there. His precious carpet is unharmed." "Thank you," Amari breathed out. "All you have to worry about is getting better. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss having you around." Amari blinked with surprise. She knew how much Polly yearned to escape from the kitchen. Her desire to move on and her distaste for the work of slaves were very apparent. Amari grimaced as she moved her head. She looked at Polly with remorse. "Now you never get chance to go to Big House." "So sorry." Polly placed another cool rag on Amari's head. "You continue to surprise me, Amari. I had no idea my desires were so obvious. You watch and you learn. That is very wise." Amari tried to nod her head, but it hurt too much. After a few moments, she asked with a slight smile, "Teeny work you too much?" Polly replied, "All I have to help me is Titbit, and that's about as much help as a rabbit in the rice field." "You sound like Teeny," Amari remarked quietly. At that, Polly almost laughed out loud. Amari was remembering what Mr. Derby had threatened, however. "Rice," she said bleakly. "He gonna send me to rice field." She couldn't stop the tears that began to trickle down her face. Polly's face fell. "Yes, he threatened to send you to the rice fields. We just have to think of something to get him to change his mind. In the meantime, he won't do anything until you are well, so let's make sure your recovery is very, very slow." Amari knew, however, that it was just a matter of time before she would be toiling in the hot sun, up to her knees in water, planting the rice, one kernel after another. "Rice field come soon," she mumbled. "I have to get up to the kitchen to help Teeny. I'll be back to check on you. You'll be all right for now?" Polly asked Amari, real concerned in her voice. Polly's voice faded as Amari drifted in and out of reality. Dreams of sunny days with Besa and the fiery sun over the rice fields floated above her. In her haze, her mother was alive and laughing, dancing in front of her cooking fire. And strangely, she dreamed of Mrs. Derby, whose face sometimes replaced her mother's in her dreams. When she awoke, it was dark outside, and Amari could smell a hint of pleasant, flowery scent. "Try to sip this, child," Mrs. Derby's voice whispered. Startled, Amari almost knocked the cup over as she felt her head being lifted. "What is Mrs. Derby doing here?" Amari wondered. She felt instantly embarrassed because she hadn't bathed in days. She knew her wounds and salves probably stank, and she had proved herself incapable in the master's home. The tea, which tasted faintly like peppermint, she sipped slowly. "So sorry," Amari whispered. "No, dear. I am the one who must apologize. I am so full of remorse for how badly my husband hurt you, Mrs. Derby replied. She continued to help Amari drink the tea until Amari felt herself drifting back to sleep. Slowly, Amari returned to the world, sipping mugs of hot liquid, eating a little of the special foods that Teeny made for her, and stayed awake for several hours at a time. Tidbit hovered, trying to make Amari feel better by making little jokes and silly faces. One evening, during the second week following the beating, after an exhausted Polly had returned to their cabin, Amari felt well enough to sit up. She did not let her back touch anything, but it felt good to breathe deeply and not lie prone for the moment. She tried to stand up next, but she found she wasn't quite strong enough yet. She groaned softly as she sat back down. Is the pain very bad? Polly asked gently. Hurt much, big much, Amari admitted, but it'd be better. Is there anything you want me to do? Polly asked. Amari shook her head. There was nothing that anyone could do. You know Mrs. Derby came to see you every day, don't you? Amari nodded. She smelled like flowers. She always looks so sad, Polly commented. Baby comes soon, and she be happy, Amari said. Polly smiled. She deserves someone to love. The wounds on Amari's back healed slowly, with the help of Teeny's ointment and Mrs. Derby's tea. Within another week, Amari was back to work with Polly in the kitchen. They had heard nothing more about Amari being transferred to the rice fields, so she worked as hard as she could and tried to make herself invisible to anyone in authority. Clay had not called for her since the beating, and for that she was grateful. He had, however, ordered Tidbit to deliver a bag of sweets to Amari. They had obviously been purchased in town. Why would he do this? She asked herself with a shudder. She gave the treats to Tidbit, who ate them with delight. You feeling all right today? Teeny asked her one morning. You still looking like a bird that done fell out the nest. Some better today. Amari lifted her arm up and touched one of the welts on her back. She winced. Hurt to touch, she said. The pain gonna go after a while, but them scars gonna be there forever, Teeny told her honestly. Amari took a deep breath. I know, she replied. Teeny touched Amari gently on her head. You got a strong spirit, Mina. Amari just shrugged. She could see no reason for having such a strong spirit, nor could she see any hope in her future. She just survived each day. However, she couldn't help but think of Afi, who kept her alive during the horrors of the voyage to this place by telling her the same thing. Sometimes spirit die, Amari replied quietly while she stirred the pot on the fire.